To what extent does family background determine one's success? How do societal expectations shape family roles? Is the concept of family becoming less important in modern society? How do power dynamics influence family relationships? What are the ethical responsibilities within a family? How does emotional intelligence affect family interactions? Can family loyalty conflict with personal values? What defines a healthy boundary in family relationships? How do families contribute to identity formation? What is the long-term impact of childhood experiences? How do families navigate generational conflicts effectively? What role does vulnerability play in family bonding? How does financial stability impact family harmony? Can independence coexist with strong family ties? What defines emotional maturity in family interactions? How do families handle conflicting values? What role does adaptability play in modern families? How do family expectations influence decision-making? What is the balance between tradition and change? How do families cope with loss and grief? What are the long-term effects of parenting styles? How do families foster resilience in children? What defines meaningful connection in a family? How does communication shape emotional closeness? What is the role of accountability in family trust? How do families maintain relevance in a changing world? What is the psychological impact of family support? How do individuals redefine family rules over time? What is the ultimate purpose of a family? How does family influence one's worldview?
How would you describe your relationship with your parents? In what ways has your family influenced your personality? How do family dynamics change over time? What role does communication play in a healthy family? How do you resolve conflicts within your family? What values did your parents instill in you? How important is emotional support in a family? How do you maintain strong family relationships? What challenges do modern families face? How does family shape your identity? What makes someone a good parent? How should parents discipline their children? What are the differences between strict and lenient parenting? How does upbringing affect a child's future? What role do parents play in education? Should parents be friends with their children? How can parents build trust with their children? What is the impact of overprotective parenting? How should parents handle teenage behavior? What parenting style do you believe is most effective?
How do family members support each other emotionally? What is the importance of empathy in a family? How do you express appreciation to your family? What strengthens emotional bonds in a family? How do misunderstandings arise in families? How can families improve communication? What role does forgiveness play in family relationships? How do you rebuild trust after conflict? What makes a family emotionally strong? How do you deal with emotional distance in a family? What responsibilities do family members have toward each other? How should household responsibilities be divided? What is the role of financial support in a family? How do families make important decisions? What challenges arise from unequal responsibilities? How can families manage financial stress? What role do older siblings play in a family? How do family roles differ across cultures? What is the importance of accountability in a family? How do families adapt to changing circumstances? How has technology affected family relationships? What challenges do long-distance families face? How do social media influence family dynamics? What are the effects of busy lifestyles on families? How can families stay connected in a digital age? What impact does globalization have on family values? How do modern families differ from traditional ones? What issues do working parents face today? How can families balance work and personal life? What role does independence play in modern families? How do generational differences affect families? What traditions are important in your family? How can families preserve cultural values? What role do grandparents play in a family? How do younger generations view family differently? How can families bridge generational gaps? What is the importance of family traditions? How do traditions influence identity? How can families adapt traditions to modern life? What conflicts arise from generational differences?
What does unconditional love mean in a family? How do families support each other during difficult times? What is the role of trust in family relationships? How do you show care for your family? What makes a family bond strong? How do families handle emotional challenges? What role does respect play in family relationships? How can families build a supportive environment? What does loyalty mean in a family? How do families maintain unity? What causes conflicts in families? How should conflicts be resolved effectively? What role does communication play in resolving disputes? How can families avoid misunderstandings? What is the impact of unresolved conflict? How do you manage disagreements respectfully? What strategies help resolve family tensions? How important is compromise in a family? How can trust be restored after conflict? What role does patience play in conflict resolution?
How does family influence personal growth? What lessons have you learned from your family? How does family shape your values? What role does family play in your goals? How do you balance independence and family? How do family expectations affect individuals? What is the role of encouragement in a family? How do families influence career choices? How do you stay connected while growing independently? What is the role of support in achieving success? What role does family play in society? How do strong families contribute to society? What challenges do families face globally? How does culture influence family structures? What changes are happening in family systems today? How do economic factors affect families? What is the role of family in education? How do families shape social behavior? What is the future of family structures? How can society support families better?
And that's the end of this journey. You've just gone through 150 deep, high-level questions about family at B1 to C2 level, not just to improve your English, but to challenge the way you think, express, and connect ideas. Remember, real fluency isn't about knowing more words. It's about thinking clearly, speaking confidently, and expressing complex ideas naturally. So don't stop here. Go back, pick a few questions, answer them in your own way, and make English a part of your thinking process every single day. If you found this video valuable, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who wants to level up their English seriously. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Keep pushing, keep thinking, and keep growing.
What if I told you that mastering English isn't just about vocabulary, but about how deeply you can think? Welcome to this powerful session where you'll explore 150 advanced English questions about family from B1 to C2 level. These aren't basic questions. They're designed to push your thinking,
challenge your opinions, and help you speak like a truly fluent English speaker. In this video, you won't just learn English. You'll learn how to express ideas, emotions, and complex thoughts naturally, just like native speakers do. Here's what you need to do. Don't just watch. Pause, think, and answer out loud. Train your brain to respond in English, not translate. If you can handle these questions, your English is about to level up in a serious way. Ready? Let's begin. What defines respect within a family context? How can families handle differences in beliefs or values? What is the role of compromise in maintaining family harmony? How do families support members facing mental health challenges? What impact does technology have on family bonding? How do families navigate conflicts between tradition and modernity? What is the importance of setting boundaries within a family? How can individuals maintain independence while staying connected to family? What role does forgiveness play in long-term family stability? How do families influence emotional intelligence development? What challenges arise when family members have different life priorities? How do families handle expectations versus reality? What role does gratitude play in family relationships? How do families maintain trust over time? What is the impact of communication breakdown in families? How do families support each other during crises? What is the importance of shared experiences in a family? How do families adapt to rapid societal changes? What role does leadership play within a family structure? How do families cultivate resilience among members? What defines emotional maturity in family interactions? How do families balance authority and equality? What is the long-term impact of family support on success? How do individuals redefine their role within a family over time? What is the ultimate purpose of a family in modern society?
How do family expectations shape personal identity over time? In what ways can family pressure influence life decisions? How do individuals balance personal ambitions with family obligations? What psychological effects can strained family relationships have? How can families rebuild trust after long-term conflict? To what extent should family influence career choices? How do cultural norms shape parenting styles? What challenges arise in multicultural families? How can families support individual freedom while maintaining unity? What defines a healthy emotional environment within a family? How do family roles evolve as children become adults? What impact does favoritism have on family relationships? How do financial struggles affect family dynamics? What strategies help maintain harmony in large families? How can families effectively manage generational differences? What role does communication play in preventing family conflicts? How do families cope with major life transitions? What is the impact of divorce on long-term family bonds? How do family traditions influence personal values? What challenges do single-parent families face? How do families maintain emotional connection over distance? What role does empathy play in family relationships? How can families encourage open and honest communication? What are the long-term effects of childhood family experiences? How do families deal with unresolved emotional issues?
What defines a happy family? Can family relationships be replaced by friendships? What is more important, family or personal freedom? How do you deal with toxic family relationships? Should family always come first? What does forgiveness mean in a family context? How do you maintain boundaries with family? What role does honesty play in family relationships? How do you cope with family expectations? What is the meaning of loyalty in a family? How do family structures evolve over time? What impact does divorce have on children? Should family obligations be prioritized over personal goals? How do cultural differences affect family values? What defines a functional family? How do families influence mental health? What role does communication play in emotional well-being? How do families adapt to crises? What makes family relationships sustainable? How do values shape family decisions?